Good morning. Hi, everyone. It's Heidi with Broadmeadow Farm. It's been a while, and I thought it was time to share with you the garden. It's a jungle. We have had the most amazing garden this year, and if you can see here behind me, it is just huge. It has been a huge lifesaver that we have had the deer fence. I have had some plants out front eaten by deer, but everything in my garden here is looking amazing. So let's go take a look. So first up, I love the look of this garden gate coming in. We have had a few days where we've forgotten to lock it. Thankfully, nobody's gotten in but the cats. So coming in here, we've got my 2 rows of peas, and they have produced so many peas this year. They're actually ready for a picking this morning, but I needed to put the sprinkler on the corn. So we'll have to wait a couple hours till this gets dried, and then we'll do that. Behind me, I have just a row of really nice snapdragons. It's just kind of a little bit of a nod back to when I did cut flowers a couple years ago. We'll see. I like them for myself. Not sure if we'll ever put them into business production, but anyway, they're just for me. Behind, I have a long row of sunflowers, again, just for me, and my first row of corn. So back here, I've got all sorts of sweet peas on the game fence. I mean, who doesn't love a sweet pea? They smell amazing. So coming this way here, this has been kind of the bane of my existence. This is all strawberries, and we've had a horrible crop year. We've had beautiful rain, sun, but they produced almost nothing. These are all of the strawberries that we put in last year, and I don't know. I've talked to a few people this year, and it seems like the same kind of inkling is they've produced berries, or flowers, I mean, but when it came time to actually producing the berries, there really wasn't a whole lot of anything. So we'll see. I am ordering a different variety. My favorite variety is Seascape, and these are a mix of a bunch of different day neutrals. We'll see. We'll give them one more shot next year, and if I'm not happy with them, they're going to be out, and we'll go from there. So yeah, behind here, this is my first patch of corn. You can see it's pretty tall. I'm only about 5'2", so it's a good height. And let's see here. You see here, we've already got good size cobs coming, so I'm really happy with that. Behind me over here, I actually put in some raised beds. This plant here, that's radishes that I completely forgot about that are going to seed. So I've determined that we do not eat radishes enough, so this is probably the last year that I will grow them. Our son loves them, but I tend to forget about them because they're not my favorite. 2 giant rhubarb. I don't know if you can tell, but there is a ton of wheat growing in here. This, like I said, this is the bane of my existence. The strawberries, I ended up putting some straw in there from the chicken coop, and while the chickens had eaten all of the seed from the actual straw, all of this wheat came from their feed that they didn't eat. So you live and learn. Next year, I'll probably put maybe some bark mulch down. That way there's not going to be any wheat growing. Let's go back through here. Here, yes, you can see my row of snapdragons. Not quite sure what I was doing this year. I ended up planting things way too close, but it kind of looks like a jungle and I like it. Oh, here. Next year we'll be growing way more foxglove. They are beautiful. So something I wanted to do this year was I actually wanted to dehydrate a bunch of onions. So this plot here is about, I don't know, 400 or 500 onions. I know you might think that's a ton of onions, but when you cook with them in every supper, they go super quick, and onions are super easy to grow. So if you've ever decided that you're thinking about doing gardening, put in some onions. You'll be super impressed. Don't start them from seed unless you want to start them in January. So if you're going to order them, or if you're going to plant them in your own garden, make sure you put them in from the little onion sets. They're like the teeny tiny little dehydrated little onions that you'll see in the garden center or home hardware. Those you can put in, and you plant them in the end of April, beginning of May, and this is what you're going to get. Okay, what else? We've got some of my lettuce that started. Again, I had some old seed this year, and so I ended up having to buy seed probably in June just to finally get some lettuce. So again, note to self, when your seed is starting to get 5, 6, 7 years old, it's probably time to get some new stuff. Okay, what else do we have? Giant row of beans. Beans are probably one of our biggest growers that we use in the winter. So we'll see. We've had 2 pickings already of them, and I'm hoping to pick some more maybe later today. Sprinklers on, so let's not go down there. Let's see, we've got right here, this is beets. Way too many beets again. Whatever's left over, the chickens will eat. Tons of pumpkins. I've got the pie pumpkins, I've got some carving pumpkins. Yeah, lots of that. And we'll go over here. We've got all my tomatoes. I've pruned them once. I'm not an expert at pruning tomatoes, but I did give them a good thinning, but they have bulked up again. So we could have tons of tomatoes this year, which is good because tomato sauce is probably my other big canning item in the garden here as well. And then the whole row of raspberries. If you've been following for a while, last year I did a video on planting raspberries and they have come amazing. So let's go a little closer and I'll show you those. So these are all the raspberries that I planted last year, and believe it or not, I think I planted 40 plants. And now if you can see here, they're actually almost to my shoulder height. But again, we're having an interesting phenomenon. They bloomed lots, but we have no berries coming. So is that something that's happening in your garden where you're at? So now let's take a tour over probably my favorite part of the garden, the flowers. Yes, I like the whole food and production, and I love that I can process it and have tons of food in the freezer. But when it comes to the flowers, that's really where my passions are. And I have filled these beds with so many things. Let's take a look. So this bed here is a mix of annuals and perennials. We have some little teddy bear sunflowers that I thought would be kind of fun to line my pathway. Yes, the cats and all of their kittens have kind of destroyed some things, but that's okay. Now over here, I had grown a pile of wave petunias this year as a practice for the greenhouse. Did you know you can actually plant your waves in the ground? You don't have to put them in pots. We've got all sorts of alliums, and this is a Martagon lily. We've got Queen Anne's lace. This is a perennial sedum, Autumn Joy, so it will start blooming in August. I've got all sorts of alyssum and geraniums. We've got some annual grass, zinnias, Karl Forster grass. Now, the name of this has slipped my mind. I think it's a millet. Just be aware, while it looks beautiful, it can seed itself prolifically, so it is time for me to probably start cutting some of those seed heads so I don't have them all over the garden. We've got Cosmos back there. More Queen Anne's lace. This here is a monk's hood. Typically, it's probably up to here, but this year, because it was freshly moved, it's a little bit shorter. Again, more wave petunias. We've got a peony here that will bloom next spring. I've got some Dusty Miller. This one is Silver Dust, and that one there is New Look. One of my tips for planting your annuals is, while I have them single here, if you actually plant them in little clumps, they will look really nice. So this here Queen Anne's lace is probably about 5 plants, but it looks like a nice bush. And if you're not using them for cut flowers, that's a really nice focal point, and it gives you a nice clump similar to that of like a perennial. Like, look at the size of this perennial clump, but this is annual. So it can fill in a really nice space. I plant them in a triangle or in 5 like on a dice. And now on the other side of the gate, I do have a little bit of symmetry in the fact that here I have a sedum and here I have a sedum, but I do like to have things kind of scattered as well. This one over here that I grew from seed, this is Brown-Eyed Susan. The Latin is Gaillardia, another amazing plant. I like it because it's similar to the native ones in the fields or the ditches you might see. So that is a good one to put into your garden. This is Buttercup here. It's also perennial. Watch out because it does tend to reseed itself and can scatter throughout your garden, but it's easy enough to pull out. Got lots of the annuals here. This is a perennial ornamental onion with some quackgrass sticking out of it. Here again, we've got the Queen Anne's lace, and I think we've got some Veronica coming in. Some of my plants weren't labeled this year, so it's a little bit more fun to guess what they are. Again, some zinnias. I've got delphinium in the back. This tall one is runner bean. I know a lot of people like to eat them. I grow them just because they're impressive and they look really neat on an arbor or a fence. So that's our front bed. Let's go check out what else is going on. So behind me here, this is our production bed. This is our future beds for production, like for perennials that we'll be selling. On the outer edge, we have peonies. I have about 5 different colors. Peonies are one of those that don't really like to be moved, so those may just become available as, flowers, stems in the future. We are still kind of waffling on that. Here, though, is the Asiatic lilies, and they will definitely be available for sale in the future. Then starting here and working here, and then way in the back is another row. Those are your daylily. That's Hemerocallis. There's 73 different varieties now, and every year we will be working on adding some more. They have been growing amazing, considering the fact that we've had some really hot weather. Now, typically, deer don't eat them, except this year. We've had a little bit of trouble with them coming in and biting off some of the buds. So one of the things we're starting to toy with is actually fencing the entire yard. But for right now, they have just kind of nibbled on things and it hasn't been a problem. So yes, these will eventually be available for sale and they will be open as show gardens in the following years as well. And we have one more flower bed, that one right there, that we have, I call the island bed because it's when you first come in. And let's go see what it looks like. So this bed is probably my favorite. 1, because it was the first one we put in here on the yard. 2 is because I have a little bit more space around each of my perennial. Well, the back garden is kind of your cottagey, messy, tightly cluttered garden. This one is more my style. And one day I hope to put some bark mulch around there. It's just not an expense we're putting into right now. But I like that what happens when you space them is you can showcase each of your plants just a little bit and they seem a little bit more special. That's my preference. If you are into the cottage English garden look where everything is growing together and just peeking out, then definitely the back garden is more your style. Let's have a look at what we have here in there specifically. Because this year was a little bit of a trial and error year with the greenhouse, I had a lot of plants that were left over. Again, we've got some purple wave petunias. Look at this one. This is actually a yellow wave, but its habit is significantly different. It stands more upright. This one lays more flat. So don't be afraid to put plants in odd and unusual places. Here we have an orange tiger lily that's getting ready to break into bloom. We've got some annual sunflowers out here. This is Silver King Sage, Artemisia, mixed in with some German iris. We've got a daylily that's finished blooming. Here we've got some German statice that probably won't bloom this year. I believe it's a 2nd-year bloomer, but I did start those ones from seed. Virginia, some elephant ears. Aquilegia, which is columbine. Again, we have another daylily. Look at that color. I don't know this variety because this one came from my mom's garden, whereas the other varieties, I do have their names and they will be known. We've got some more yellow wave petunias. This is a golden basket yarrow, less invasive than some of the traditional yarrow. Here we have, again, autumn joy sedum, but this one here is a variegated variety. Though it looks like some of the leaves are not super variegated. They will be blooming pink later this month. We've got a peony, 3 more wave petunias. I have to be honest, I am really liking this yellow wave petunia. Super compact in the ground. I'll show you a pot that I have with it. Way better in the pot, but I really like that it's giving us some color here. We've got another daylily. Don't know the variety because it was from my grandma. We've got an Asiatic lily. And we've got some Veronica. More purple wave petunias. Look at how they spread out and fill a space. So if you had an area that you didn't really know what you wanted to do, you could throw 3 or 4 waves and they would give you a nice carpet. Some more German iris. This here is a late blooming monkshood. So it's touch and go for our zone, mostly because we have frosts a little bit too early. You look here, we're only just starting to make flower heads. So this one will bloom starting probably the first week in September. And last year it actually bloomed. The previous year we had a frost too early. And again, some ornamental onions. This is another delphinium. It's finished blooming. Here's the difference of those wave petunias in this pot. You can see how in the ground the yellow ones were a bit more moundy. Here they're trailing. So that's probably your ideal situation for your wave petunias. But there you go. That's kind of the update of our garden, and I look forward to sharing with you a little bit more as we go throughout the season. Have a great day.